Hi, David.
Hello.
Is this thing on?
Okay.
All right. I'm here. Hi.
There you are.
There you are.
I had to find the mute button, and I was telling Daniel in the back chat here, I'm over here closing all of my Word documents and Excel spreadsheets and all that sort of thing. All the fun stuff.
Secret things.
Not fun.
All the secrets.
I had to close at least one Visual Studio, so you know that I was coding recently.
Well, that's something. So
you saved me for last because you figured I would send everybody home. Is that what this is?
Or keep everybody.
Yeah, we don't wanted to break the schedule.
Well, I'm looking forward to lots of questions. So I hope everybody that's listening and joining in the next few minutes will get your questions ready, throw them in the chats, because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to give you the inside scoop on everything that's happening behind, I don't know, people's bedroom doors, I guess. It sounded horrible. I don't know what's happening.
Or maybe keep to Maui?
Well, I was just, where my head went was we're all working from home now. People are working out of whatever room in their house, probably bedrooms. And then as it came out of my mouth, it just wasn't the same.
Something changed. That's awesome.
So do you have the pants cam connected?
You know what? I gave the pants cam to my university son because he's at Rolla University, or I guess Missouri S&T, Science and Technology. Anybody who's a longtime ASP programmer will remember the Four Guys from Rolla website, where we learned ASP and ASP.NET back in the late 90s and early 2000s. That's the university that he goes to. And with being on campus, he goes into the labs like once for a class, and then everything else is remote. So he needed a better camera.
Yeah,
I decided to donate the pants cam.
And for those who doesn't know about the pants cam, tell us about it.
Oh, it's just my second camera. With OBS, you can set up all kinds of different things. And so I figured, since I work from home all the time, one of the questions that people, before everybody worked from home, when I was one of the only ones, they would always be like, "Oh, I bet you don't even put pants on in the morning, right?" And then the other part of it was because I did work from home and have worked from home for, 10, 15 years now at this point. My son was upstairs playing video games. And I'm pretty sure he was playing some Minecraft. Same kid who now has the pants cam. And he just suddenly shouts, "Are you wearing pants?" And I was like, it's just the most random thing, I mean, it's better than die. But I was like, what in the world, And I'm like, yeah, I got pants. So it's always stuck in our heads. And now you have to endure these silly stories.
No, it's funny. I love it.
So up until now, you've always been able to prove that, hey, I'm wearing pants. I'm guessing now you introduced another problem. So
are you wearing pants?
Don't have that cam anymore.
I know. I need to. Actually, I did buy a different camera, and I just have not set up my OBS to point it at my pants. But I am wearing pants. Thank you for asking. This is important. It's too cold not to at this point. I've got snow outside, so.
Another snow. See, we're a lot of snow talk today. We as well.
Do you like the snow or not?
I like it because it hides all the leaves I didn't rake on my grass.
Oh, nice.
So I feel like Mother Nature can take care of things. I don't necessarily need to go out there and make my grass look super beautiful. So that's the way I roll. My neighbors probably hate it.
So a grass cam.
Ooh.
Yeah, I actually almost set up a keyboard cam because I bought a new keyboard. I don't know if I can lift it up high enough for everybody to see, but you can see the corner of it. So I got one of these mass drop keyboards. Very loud. So but maybe you have to hook that up and start a new trend.
A mic
Yeah,
for
why
the
not?
keyboard as well. A camera and a mic for the keyboard.
Cool. Well, are we ready to talk about .NET Maui?
Yes, we are ready. Take it away.
Let's do it.
Cool. All right. Well, welcome everybody. I am looking at the Twitch chat for sure. I don't have, hi Maddie. I don't have the YouTube chat up. So sorry, everybody on YouTube. Somebody else can watch YouTube and tell me when we get questions and whatnot. Please drop your questions in there because I am here to give you answers and to share what's going on with the .NET team and our evolution of Xamarin Forms into .NET Maui. So let's get on the slides and go to the next thing. So I'm going to start off with a little personal narrative. Forgive the indulgence for a little trip down memory lane. I went and found some of my old profile pics. So you may notice that my current profile pic is the little kid with the blonde hair. That's what I looked like from the age of 5 until, I don't know, 12. And the Darth Vader, that is a Darth Vader helmet on his shirt, I promise. But, you know, my career started back in 96. Now, of course, I am a program manager with Microsoft, so I should have perhaps introduced that at the start of this. Been with Microsoft now for 4 years, but my career started my first programming where I was being paid, right? Like not the noodling around on the old Epson green screen and doing basic, but people paying me to do things was in 96. And for the first 3 years, it was a lot of HTML, JavaScript, and media streaming. We were doing live radio broadcasts. Well, you call it radio, is over the internet. But it was all audio stuff. And it was stuff that nobody was doing up to that point for live events. So I didn't know it at the time, but I was doing some crazy things. And then I learned ASP and SQL by basically taking the contractor that was working on the product with us and saying, hey, I'll give you $50. Take me to a whiteboard and tell me everything I need to know so I can be a programmer. Probably the best $50 I ever spent. And so that's how I got my start. But, you know, things move, things change. In 99 and for the next 3 years, most of my career was with Adobe Flash, ASP, and SQL Server. So I kind of made a bit of a career there, building these highly interactive Flash websites that had some, you know, kind of dynamic content, data capture, quite a few games during that period of time, and things like that. I know somebody needs to tell me. I'm sure everybody gets sick of me talking about the F word Flash, but you know, here's why I'm bringing this stuff up is because as time goes on, if we forget where we've come from and where we're going, we're doomed to repeat some of the same, you know, mistakes, and we don't capitalize on the learnings. Sorry for the buzzword, but the learnings that we have from what has gone before. So not only what our personal experience is of what has gone before, but as we're building the future, let's look at the rest of the ecosystem and other ecosystems to say, okay, what are they being successful with? What have they struggled with? And how can we improve what we have? So the next 5 years, I went and worked in healthcare enterprise software. So doing claims administration. So working with Blue Cross Blue Shields and companies like that as a, what were we? I guess we were a software vendor for them. And so I converted an ASP product to VB.NET and then to C# quickly. C# seemed to be very clearly where things were trending in the community. And, you know, I think as many of you may be watching what's happening in .NET and in the mobile and the desktop client space, you're also kind of where I was at that point. You're trying to figure out where things going. I want to make sure that I'm doing cool stuff. I'm working close to the front edge. And maybe you're thinking, where's my career going? You know, where's Microsoft taking me? Am I going to have a job in 5, 10 plus years? And as you can see, I've been doing this for a while. So I have some understanding of what that's like. And of course, I was continuing to do a lot of Flash and Flex because it paid really, really well. And I enjoyed it because you were typically building things that just didn't have any precedent. And that was really great. Then there's this beautiful period of a lot of open source, crazy stuff. Rails and Django and PHP. Don't really miss the PHP, but it got the job done and it was pretty fast. and still lots of Flash and Flex. I actually got a couple of Silverlight projects, mostly rescues, but I did build some of those. And this is where iOS and Android get introduced, right? So Objective-C, I learned that. Again, I took somebody aside and said, I'll pay you a little bit of money, teach me Objective-C. And then because I have an English degree, so I don't come from computer science. And then Android. And so things are changing, things are evolving. What I was making money on before, what I was building and helping companies be successful with before is now changing. And then as iOS and Android were booming, now you have companies saying, but I don't have the budget, or I don't want to have to build for both platforms. And so cross-platform becomes very interesting around this period in my career. Certainly Flash had some cross-platform for desktop and for browsers, but on the mobile, it was a little bit later before Air got into those platforms. But then MonoTouch and MonoDroid were things that I had seen. And of course I had the C# experience. And so I was like, okay, that's interesting. But I'm not so sure about it just yet. It wasn't really taking off. But later on, a friend that I had been doing some work with said, hey, this is really getting much better now. You should take a look at it. And so I did, and started building some of my own applications with it while still building Objective-C and Java. And you can't underestimate working in those other ecosystems, because when you work in different languages and different frameworks, you think differently. And so you can kind of bring the best of everything together. And then just to wrap some of this up, because I think you see where this is going, it's starting to narrow down in my career. Still from 2014 to 2017, lots of Flash and Flex work, but this is where I had a partnership with another developer, and we had a consultancy where we were building things for some big names that I think I'm still under NDA and I can't talk about. But really, we featured Xamarin as the primary thing. And so .NET was really taking over the majority of our business until 2017, when I joined Microsoft. And now I exclusively do Xamarin in terms of paid work. And so, at different periods in all of this, people drop off, people go from one framework to another framework. Switching is not terribly common, as I've learned from all the customer research that we do, but it does happen and things change. And change is not always a bad thing, but we want to learn from the things that changed in the past so that we don't repeat them. We don't want to build a Silverlight and then it's dead end. There's nowhere to go with it. And so we've certainly learned from that, and we're not going to repeat that. But I'm very excited about where things are going now, because this all leads us to .NET Maui. And so let's talk about this. I'll give a little introduction, reintroduction for those of you who maybe already know this, and then we'll talk about actual current events. So what is .NET Maui? It's the evolution of Xamarin Forms. Well, what is Xamarin Forms? So Xamarin Forms is a UI abstraction on top of native SDKs. When you're using Xamarin iOS and Xamarin Android today, you are using the same UI kit, the same Android widgets library, the same UWP that Objective-C, Java, Swift, Kotlin developers are using. But we have glued essentially the SDK to a .NET surface area so that you can use C#. But you're exercising all the same APIs, which is why we can very clearly say that it is native and you're getting native performance. And then Xamarin Forms on top of that says, okay, let's abstract away a bunch, if not all, of the common APIs, and let's help you to build cross-platform applications with less code by sharing more. But where that started to, because we did this in March, Xamarin Forms will be 7 years old. So we have learned a lot over time, talking to developers, talking to companies about how are you using the product now, and how companies are using the product has actually changed. 7 years ago, when it was introduced, the goal was to share a bunch of code, but the Android really would look very different than the iOS. And over time, probably about 3 to 4 years ago, things really started to trend heavily in the direction of iOS and Android. Material Design comes out, iOS changes to the more flat design, and the aesthetic and everything and the behavior really became very consistent across the platforms. And so the need changed. And so Xamarin Forms has worked over the past 3 to 4 years to also transition and help you be more successful in doing that. And .NET Maui is going even further to help you be successful that way. We're also extending into desktop, and with a strong emphasis here on performance and extensibility, all driven by your feedback. So yes, we have vision for where we're taking things, but really you are in a large part what informs where we take the product to help you be successful. So what does Maui even stand for? We like to say Maui, it's a whole lot less words, less syllables, but it's the multi-platform app UI. So this is really the heart of what this is for all of .NET. It is giving you native client application controls, APIs to do all the native things. So you're not restricted. You're not blocked from doing anything that another application can do. That doesn't mean there's not going to be effort in some cases and more effort in other cases, but it's there for you. Okay. And we're going to make it as easy as possible for the most common scenarios. And then of course, mature it as we go. But then, whether you're doing desktop, mobile, Android, iOS, Windows, or Mac. And then we also have an eye towards the future of Linux and web and some of these other things. IoT obviously is an opportunity also. But right now we're focused on Windows, Mac, Android, and iOS. This is part of .NET 6. And so .NET 6 is really about bringing what has been the Xamarin workload into .NET. So it is, all one product at this point. It's essentially being merged. Mono is already with the base class libraries, sharing, I believe it's CoreFX. Forgive me because I start to get a little out of my depth in terms of all of what we call things in .NET these days. But it's a shared base class library with the rest of .NET Core. And then in .NET 6, the runtimes are coming along, and all of the Xamarin SDKs, formerly Xamarin SDKs, are now becoming .NET SDKs and are being built and bundled into the system. So Sweet Bee Toby, that was probably not exactly how you intended me to say that. No support for Linux GUIs. So in this first iteration of .NET Maui, we are not shipping a Linux GUI. Xamarin Forms currently has an implementation that is GDK Sharp 2. It can be upgraded. I think 4 or something is the current version there. But there is an outstanding question. Should it be something else? Is GDK not what people want, what you need? So there's, it's open source. I don't want to just like throw that out there as a we're never going to do it kind of a thing. But we welcome contributions. It's there because of a contribution. WPF is in Xamarin Forms because of a community contribution. So happy to work with you and guide anybody who wants to see that come to fruition with Linux. All right. A couple of other things that I will mention here before I leave. It is about .NET 6. It is about unifying with the rest of the platform. We are doing a bunch of experiments based on what we're doing with .NET Maui and what we're doing with .NET as a whole. So bringing more Blazor type experiences with Razor templates or with hybrid scenarios into native applications, as well as Comet, which is a fluent builder syntax for creating your UI, similar to what people are enjoying and seeming to have good success with in Swift UI, in Flutter, in Jetpack Compose, places like that. So you'll see more from us over the summer. Once we get the foundation of .NET Maui there and the core pieces, we'll be able to really spend more time talking about the experiments and where we can take things in the future with these really cool things. Those are just 2 of the experiments. We actually had a meeting, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, but with several maintainers of cool experiments, and we're going to bring them all together, and really excited about that stuff. So all made possible because .NET Maui is happening. So real quickly, what are the goals? Why are we doing this? It's all about quality, performance, design, and platform reach. We certainly would love to always be greedier and go bigger, but we want to make sure that as we make this transition, that we're not sacrificing. I start with quality, not sacrifice there. We could add more platforms. We could add tons more UI components, but if we sacrifice quality in the pursuit of those things, we're really doing you a disservice. All right, so where can you see all of this wonderful activity happening? So first of all, GitHub for sure. .NET Maui is the home for this project. And then the work is currently happening in a branch of Xamarin Forms. The reason being is because that is where the team has obviously been for the past 7 years-ish, been working on Xamarin Forms, and it is the basis for what .NET Maui is becoming. And so it's easier from a CI standpoint, from a testing standpoint, and everything else to be doing that work there. In the future, perhaps even near future, that activity will switch to the .NET Maui repository to make it more clear exactly where that work is happening. But if you want to see it today, you can check out the main handler branch on Xamarin Forms GitHub, and you can download it, you can run it. And I'll get to the status update. Well, I'll wait and I'll get to the status update so you can kind of know what you would be able to expect when you were running it right now. But I also want to point out we have Discord. So Miguel de Icaza and company set up a Discord server called .NET Evolution. And this is where we host channels really for everything that's happening, not only inside of Microsoft, but outside as well. And so we have a Maui channel. Come join us in there. The team that is the core team has been actively conversing there for really the past week. And now that we are past Xamarin Forms 5 and a lot more of the focus and effort is on Maui. So come join us there. Talk to us about what's going on. Ask us your questions. Tag me in there. I'd be more than happy to jump in there. I don't spend all day in there, but I do try to peek and see if I've got a big old red badge telling me that I need to do something. I do want to call your attention to themes of .NET real quickly. So all the planning related to .NET and .NET 6 specifically is on this Themes of .NET website. It's a website that Emo Landworth put together, and I don't know how he built it. I should probably know that to plug the cool technology, but I'm sure it's .NET. And but you can go up here and you can query against Xamarin because it's still our legacy tag. You can also search for Maui and other things and see what are all the things that we're tracking and what are the priorities, what order are we working on them, that sort of thing. So lots of information there. Okay, take a break. Let's talk about timelines so that you can, I want to set your expectations about what is going to be in the previews, who should really care about them, and what you could be doing with those things. So preview 1 is coming out shortly. I don't believe there is actually a public schedule, but I can tell you very shortly this is going to be showing up online. It's primarily going to be the evolution of the base class libraries and the runtimes, but there's not going to be there much for you as a .NET Maui developer just yet. So the only people that I would encourage really for this release and the Preview 2 release to look at this from a .NET Maui perspective are going to be those of you who are contributors, who are eager to understand the architectural changes that are being made, and please engage with us in conversation about those things. We post specs, we post obviously PRs for review and things like that, and we really encourage that feedback. Preview 2 will have some .NET Maui progress in it in terms of the views, the layouts, everything else that's been merged. We've done work on image source handlers. We're doing work on the app hosting. The registrar has been updated and things like this. The registrar, a lot of these things aren't things that end user developers necessarily see, but contributors are a bit more aware of how controls are registered in the platform. Or library maintainers, for that matter, like Progress Telerik and Syncfusion and others. So again, I would consider Preview 2 to really be more geared as an early release to those of you who are wanting to look under the hood and get super dirty. Preview 3 and Preview 4, however, we really feel like we're going to have enough pieces of the puzzle there, from runtime, from support for different devices and emulators, all the APIs, as well as enough of the toolkit there from controls, views, and support for Visual State Manager and all the things that need to get ported over from Xamarin Forms so that you could actually be building things. This will also, we believe, Preview 3 and Preview 4, you can kind of think general time frame in second quarter of the year. Okay. Probably later in that quarter. And that is when you're going to be able to get these pieces. It'll have Mac Catalyst, we believe, at that time. That also aligns with when we think we'll have more WinUI 3. We actually have a little bit of WinUI 3, which I'll show you in a bit. Not a little bit of it. We have the whole thing. And I would encourage everybody to be looking towards these releases as bits you want to install and create new applications from them. I would not encourage trying to migrate old applications unless you really are like, you know what, I just want to bleed all over the place, because we have not yet at this point. By this point, we have not done work on the try convert experience, written any guides. I mean, these are all certainly things we have notes and we have plans for, and we know what the process is going to look like, but we haven't productized any of that stuff. So you're going to be very much on your own if you're trying to migrate an application. So I would say just wait a release or two until we start posting some guides on what your migration steps actually are. I'm happy to answer questions, though, of course, about what you can expect from that migration experience later, because we know what it's going to look like. We just haven't built it all out. Right. And please, open issues, come talk to us on Discord. I have very high hopes too. I'm very excited about it, and I really feel like that this is the right thing to do. Preview 5 and beyond, through release candidate. So now we're talking middle of the year through release. Definitely pull these down. We'll be polishing it up. We'll be looking at the remaining gaps and things that need to be filled out. Everyone should be using these, filing new app, filing issues, talking to us on Discord. And at some point in here will be okay, now take a look at what your migration looks like coming from Xamarin Forms. Okay. So I think I think I have about 7 minutes left. So let's talk about actual status, current events, what's been going on. So I'm going to break this apart into several big chunks. So in terms of .NET build system runtime, what has been happening here? Well, it's on track. That's good news. We are building on a branch of .NET 6. One of our branches of .NET 6, but preview 1 hasn't come out yet. So it's not something that we've pulled together and we can share. You could, of course, stitch all these things together yourself, but again, that's some pretty early stuff, and I don't think you get much value out of it. And then we also have to do a little bit of tooling work around in Visual Studio to bring these pieces together and make them all work. Jonathan Peppers, I believe, is kind of the master of figuring that stuff out. So we're awaiting a preview 1 build that is more official, and we can consume it as a library. And then we're also waiting on the tooling updates, but these are known things, and we're collaborating with those teams on those. We're also working closely with the core CLR team and the Mono team to determine the right runtime for macOS. So I'll go ahead and jump ahead at this point, but the runtime, or at least the way in which we are delivering macOS in .NET MAUI is using Mac Catalyst. Mac Catalyst uses UIKit as the primary driver, and then adds on some additional access to things that are provided for macOS in AppKit. And so it's not just your iPhone running on the desktop. It's not just an iPad square or rectangle running on a macOS desktop. These are the first party apps that Apple is also using now. You can support multi-window, you can support resizing of windows and things like that. So we feel like it's the right experience. We also feel like this is where Apple's already going with things, and so this is where we'll take it. So we're working with those teams on what the runtime needs to look like. Just had a meeting yesterday, day before, about that. So that's happening. Very excited about that. We also have current progress on the Android and iOS ICU, which I don't remember what that TLA 3-letter acronym stands for off the top of my head. If anybody knows, throw it in the chat. Educate us all. Sometimes I just report things and I just kind of nod and smile, but I know what the rest of this is. Android Crypto and Android TLS are works in progress. So there are some of these things, security related things, that are more complex, and so they're still underway. John, Dick, and I are kind of the on point owners. So if you have questions about these things, ping us. Hot Reload. We're really excited about Hot Reload and what we're going to be able to do in .NET 6. I was just talking to Dimitri about this earlier, and I got to tell you, it's a huge effort across all of .NET. We have so many teams involved, and he is wrangling them all and getting the right people involved to make sure this is going to be an awesome experience. So yeah, he'll be able to report more on this. We do have a monthly .NET Xamarin. Do we still call it Xamarin, I guess? Community stand-up, first Thursday of every month. And we'll get him on there and share some more in-depth details of that. But the big thing that we're working towards getting in .NET 6 is a C# hot reload with a method body replacement is the strategy that works for everybody. So they've been working to get the debugger and everything working. And I think we're probably going to see that land. I could be wrong. Don't hold me to this. I think we're probably going to see the first preview of that landing for Windows because that's the more mature pipeline of tooling. And we can kind of prove things out there like we've done with XAML Hot Reload recently in the changes only mode. So very excited about that. Single project. So this is the experience where right now in Xamarin, you have multiple head projects. The head projects being Android, iOS, Mac, Windows. And then you have the majority, if not all of your code in a library, class library. So that's where you're most productive. That's also where things hot reload the fastest. And that's the code that's shared the most. So we are making more strides towards unifying everything we possibly can in that project. At present, it looks like the head projects will still exist, but your focus can remain in the single project. Some of this has to do with build tooling and things like that that may need a little longer to bake. So just setting a little expectation there. But Jake and John will be the ones that if you have questions, you should ping them. If you want to get involved, I mean, everybody will have access to early bits. So no sense begging them for an early preview. This is all open source stuff, so it'll probably be coming to everybody at the same time roundabout. But if you have questions or you want to share some of your thoughts, those are the guys. All right, a couple more minutes left. Mobile SDKs. This is where I spend a lot of time. So Android on track. The emulator and device deploy and run are working. That's awesome. AOT and startup time tracing, are in progress. So those are the good performance things that are going to make your app start up and run faster. iOS is on track. Simulator is working. Device is still in progress. AOT, Catalyst, and Build Agent are all in progress right now. So that's making headway. In terms of actual Maui controls and where things stand right now, there's a lot of stuff in progress. And so we're moving from the old custom renderer or renderer architecture, which we have a shim for. So if you're sitting there and wondering, oh man, I have a bunch of renderers, what are you doing to me? We have a way to make those compatible until you can transition to this new architecture. And we'll document that more clearly and share it. But a lot of things in progress. You can check out the Maui handler branch for when these land. I'll continue to report this progress and share with you how things are going as they do. Layouts are a little bit more complex and behind, but we have progress on 2 of them. So stack layout and grid are both in different percentages of completeness, and of course the rest of the layouts will be coming. By the way, there is a status page on the wiki of .NET Maui on GitHub that has all this information, and I update it pretty much every time we do a stand-up. So you can totally check that out. We have stand-ups twice a week. So real quick, I know that I'm at time, but I think I'm at time. I want to quickly just talk about what the architecture is, and I've got a couple other things, and then you can fire off your questions at me. So the old architecture is this renderer. The renderer has deep knowledge of the cross-platform button, which is completely opposite of the way that we've learned that we really should be doing this. Thanks, Javier, for sharing the link in the Twitch chat. So we are re-architecting this. We have an interface for each view and each layout control now. And then we have handlers. So there's no iNotify property change happening at that level. All of that is now abstracted up into, maybe abstracted isn't the right word there, but it's all brought up into the MVVM aware version of a button. But it also enables us to have other types of buttons, such as a comment button or some future, and these are all made up, fabulous button or a reactive button. And these that may not need any iNotify property change can implement whatever it is that they need for their model view update or other pattern, other future pattern, and not have to change anything underneath, which would previously have been in the renderer. So that's a very exciting thing. It's also a huge performance boost. Okay, cool. This is going to play. So this is just a real quick look at John Dick's pool math application, which you can actually find in both the app stores. If you have a pool and you're wanting to track all the details of your chemistry very closely, it's a cool app. And he was able to very quickly, with some help from Frank and subsequently using the Catalyst bits that the iOS team has been producing, to get his Xamarin Forms app running on Mac OS. So that's really cool. And pretty much everything works. So there's a couple of gotchas, but we'll work through those things. Just a quick screenshot to show you that WinUI is alive and well. We also have a branch which is linked at the bottom of the screen, where you can see the latest WinUI things. And as a matter of fact, it has recently been updated. I think Preview 3 is the latest bits. Shane has worked through several things on that branch. Before the call, before this session, he said, hey, you could totally run that if you really want to go crazy. He's like, but you're going to get about 5 errors when you start the application. Just power through them. It'll run fine. So that's where we're at. So that's why I say wait till Preview 3 and 4 before you try to jump in. The second to last slide, I think, I just want to mention that we do have an open source library maintainer community call every month. It's actually coming up this Tuesday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern time is the current time. If you are a maintainer, contributor to a community project, and you will have questions about what is happening architecturally in Maui so that you can be ready for it, please join that call. We're happy to answer your questions during that time. We'll also give you a quick update on our progress. A lot of progress, which I have not mentioned. This is my last slide. A lot of progress is being made right now on the testing story for our UI and our unit tests. So there's a big conversion happening. We now have the whole gallery running. Shane was so excited about it before the call. He was like, this is really what's been blocking some of our progress on some other things, because we want to make sure that we have upfront investment in all of our testing. Because again, what was the first pillar that I shared on the why we're doing this? Quality. So with that, thanks for joining. I am ready to take some questions. Hey, Ryan, what's up? And you can find me on Twitch. You can find me on Twitch. I haven't streamed on Twitch in a while, but for sure, I've been posting a lot of stuff on YouTube. You can find me on GitHub. You can find me on Twitter. Please reach out anytime. I think you saw my email on the previous screen. There's my email. Don't hesitate to contact me. I apologize if I don't reply right away, but you know how it is. And breathe.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
For us, at least.
Yeah.
I was relatively on
was
time.
good.
I wasn't as good as my predecessor here, but
Yeah.
Well, she was spot on, so it's hard to beat.
She nailed it. She was so professional. I was like getting a little nervous about how I was going to compare. But, you just got to be yourself, right? You just got to go for it.
Yeah.
By the way, I have this
Definitely.
cool new swag from Microsoft. Do you see this sweatshirt? Which way do I go?
Huh.
I'm backwards on my camera. I love this thing. This thing is so comfortable. Go buy some
Nice.
Microsoft swag. I don't know why. I don't get
Make me
it.
think of Doctor Who.
Yeah, kind of the new doctor's t-shirt.
Okay.
Do we have any
let's-
questions that have come
Yes,
up? I can scroll back.
Is SAML still an option in Maui?
Absolutely. So really in Maui coming up in November, XAML is still your first class experience. We don't have plans at this point to change that. So, in part, this is to help all of our Xamarin Forms applications migrate smoothly. It is the same XAML flavor, I guess, is the way that folks like to talk about it. We're not going to make radical changes to XAML itself. The only real substantial change is going to be the namespace change. There will be some other breaking name changes, but the XAML controls, XAML itself, all still there. We've made awesome progress in the XAML hot reload. The latest version of 16.9, which is going to go stable here soonish, right, has a new and improved changes only mode for hot reload that's really fast. In my opinion, it's a little too fast because sometimes I don't know if it actually changed. Because, I want to see a flash. That's just me. I just want to see a flash. But yeah, so XAML for sure. Still there. But it's, as always, it's an option. You can do C#. You can use the new markup UI extensions that are in the community toolkit. And we will be experimenting with Blazor, Razor templates, and with Comet. But regardless, we're not going to pull the rug out from anybody who loves XAML, who's spent their careers investing in XAML. We understand that that's important.
Okay. Would you recommend Maui for performance demanding UI, which handles video streaming and heavy traffic? Thanks.
Absolutely. Because it's native and, something I haven't talked about here, but you can absolutely mix and match Maui, the cross-platform UI, with your native UI. It is all native in the end, right? But in the same way that you can embed Xamarin Forms inside of another host that is Android, iOS, Mac, Windows, whatever, you can do the same thing with Maui. You'll still have that capability to decide how much cross-platform and how much platform-specific you need to achieve the performance and the user experience that you require. But I would say that our goal with .NET Maui is to make it so that you wouldn't really want to use anything else, that Maui is meeting all the expectations for performance, for user experience, for design. That's where we're going.
Okay. I have another question. We do a lot of enterprise application, mostly MVC. A few are mobile. Would Maui be better than Mendix, Blazor, Vue, Angular, etc.?
So I think that
hard question.
So the great thing here is that the way that we're thinking about this is again really driven by what we've learned from our customers and enterprises. So there's a category of company that leads with web, and then they want to extend to mobile, to desktop, but their first investments and maybe the talent that they have in their dev teams is predominantly web. So we are working with the Blazor team in particular to build out hybrid scenarios where you can basically host a native Blazor application. You can host a Blazor app inside. You start saying native and suddenly it's just like the only word coming out of your mouth. But you can host a Blazor app inside of a .NET Maui app. And you can essentially, similar to what I was just saying about the other scenario, you decide how much of your code needs to be in the web piece, how much of it needs to be in the native piece, but you get the full spectrum of capabilities, right? So, if in your enterprise ecosystem, which we see a lot, you have investments across many different stacks, some of them old, some of them new. And so we're looking for all the ways in which we can have these things complementing each other so that you aren't making an either or decision, you're making a both and decision. Does that make sense?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Can we build web apps with Maui?
So we are not focusing in .NET Maui for November .NET 6 on web as a platform for Maui. If web is an important piece of your puzzle, my recommendation would be to use Blazor, and then you can host it inside of or on top of a Maui application, and you can do more integration that way. In the future, I absolutely believe that we will be bringing Maui to the web, but for specific scenarios where it is best suited. We know that there's customer need here, but there's also what gives you the best end user experience here. And we need to figure out where the right place is for that. So I would say that's a further future thing. It's not close enough that we actually have a plan for it, but it continues to be something that we get asked about and that we're watching for. So right now, if web is an important piece, my recommendation is use Blazor. And then we are building those collaborations with Blazor so that you can mix and match with Maui when you need to.
That makes sense. Don't you think that Microsoft should hire more devs to push Maui faster?
Is that how it works? I don't know. I mean, we've got a lot of consultants here. Let's take a poll. Does adding more developers? Yeah, there you go. That's the response right there. So, the thing to understand about all the things happening with Maui is it's not just the forms team, if you will, not just the controls there. It's the core CLR team. It's the .NET, base class library core effects team. It is the Android and the iOS SDK teams. It is tooling teams. There are a lot of unsung heroes that are working behind the scenes that don't get the visibility the forms team does. So when you're counting developers or trying to count developers by looking at GitHub commits, just know that there's a lot of folks you're not necessarily seeing that are making significant impact in the product. So would I always welcome more help? Absolutely. But hey, open source contribute. We'll turn you into an employee someday, maybe. I don't know. No promises.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Yeah. Do we have a choice between single and multi projects? Is it based on SDK extra?
Absolutely, you will have a choice. So single project will not be a requirement. As a matter of fact, we would not encourage legacy applications to migrate from multi-headed to single-headed, just because. If you want to, you could do the work to take your multi-headed application and convert it into a single project, but you don't need to. The same capabilities that we're bringing to single project for things like embedded fonts and shared images and app icons and even manifest related configuration things that we're putting into single project, you'll still have that capability even if you have a multi-headed solution. Okay. So we're not going to require it. We do have currently a dependency on the SDK extras until the multi-targeting support in Visual Studio and .NET reaches the point where we don't need it anymore. And that is underway.
Okay. I don't understand how exactly the layouts like grid and stack layout change.
Right. So if you think about what a layout does, is it's going to measure and position things, right? But now all the control architectures have changed to this new interface. So you basically just added a new interface. And so now it needs to know, okay, I knew how to lay out a renderer. I knew how to lay out a forms element, but these are no longer forms element. Now they are handler mapper controls. So the surface area changed. And so now it needs to know how to size those things and how to lay them out. It's not necessarily a rewrite of the layout algorithms per se, but we are taking an opportunity to look at them and to improve them as this transition occurs. So that's really the fundamental reason that they need to change, is because we've moved to this very decoupled control from framework, which used to be super tightly ingrained or intertwined. We have to do some work to make sure that they know what to do.
Are you going to use software generators in Maui to help performance?
That's a great question. I don't have a specific example where we have committed to that as a strategy, but I do know that it comes up and there is eagerness to find opportunities to do that. That'd be a great question to open up in Discord with the engineering team and share your thoughts on where you might think it would be useful.
Will app size be reduced with Maui?
So that's interesting. I mean, certainly is something that we want to see reduced. We've made a lot of progress in the past, really 2 years, getting APK sizes down in particular, which I mentioned APK because Android is where it tends to be a bigger issue. But iOS has become important for app size recently with the introduction of app clips, which is the lightweight version of your app that can kind of run without actually installing the whole app. So I think last I saw, and you can go up to the .NET 6 SDK samples. I think it's actually Xamarin/Net 6 samples, or maybe there's a dash in there. But there's a repo up there, and that's where John Peppers and Peter Collins and others have been doing work on these things. And they report what our app sizes, what our build times, what our deploy times are. And I believe that's all being reported on that repo. If it's not, let me know. But long story short, we're watching it, we're monitoring it, and we're hoping to certainly not regress it. And we'll get wins everywhere we think we can. There are some clear things that are going to be improved in Maui itself as compared to forms, because we're removing all of the view wrapping. It's gone. So hopefully we don't inflate things again by adding something else later. But we're watching it, and you can track that progress on GitHub.
Okay. What about the minimum requirements? Can we use VS Code in our phones just like Flutter?
So VS Code is an interesting one, because you will be able to use VS Code. Matter of fact, you can use VS Code today. It just requires a little effort on your part. So we have the pieces in place in order to make VS Code work. And because we're unifying in .NET 6 with the rest of .NET, which already works in VS Code, by virtue of that, we will have better support there. What you won't have in VS Code is you won't have XAML IntelliSense just yet. Anything that's not on the, oh gosh, what is the term for it? But the language service that is the common thing that is used everywhere. If the language that you're using, which would be XAML, is not supported there yet, you're not going to get IntelliSense help outside of whatever VS Code is doing just to remember what you typed and present it to you. So you won't have as good of an editing experience there. You won't have publish dialogues, for example. You won't be able to ship things right to the App Store like you can. You won't have property panels for all the different, build configurations and things like that. But can you run and hot reload your application from VS Code? You'll be able to, but it's not something that we are going to be supporting at first. Is that clear? There's a difference between what you can do and what Microsoft says, we're going to support this as a great experience. So that'll be further down the line. Common language server. Oh, yes. Thank you. That's what I meant.
Okay. And news on the .NET Mono interpreter. This is supposed to help with C# hot reload.
We are using the interpreter. It is involved in the C# hot reload. Absolutely.
Is there any plans to allow embedded native code in Java, Kotlin, Swift with Maui, just like Flutter or React Native does?
So we actually have one of the experiments that I was mentioning earlier, but I didn't talk about, is one where we allow you to essentially do that. You can bring a native code project directly in and interact with it from the .NET side using simple message APIs, which I believe is how Flutter and React Native does it today. I'm probably speaking a little out of my depth on that, but it doesn't, the key bit of this is it doesn't require you to do a .NET binding, which is where a lot of developers find that there's significant friction to using native libraries. So we do have good progress on that. It's a pretty simple experience. And you'll see more from us on that as we get into the summer.
Okay. Great. Here we have another question. Technically, isn't going to be really complicated to have forms handle both SAML and MVU? They need a very different engine.
So this is where the decoupling comes in. So it's not forms handling the MVU in that case, it's Comet. But they share all of the other non-MVVM bits. We're basically taking MVVM, data binding, iNotify property change, all the things that people tend to think of as forms, and we have decoupled it from the actual cross-platform abstraction of native controls, as well as essentials. Essentials is being merged in, by the way. I didn't mention that. So that is how that's working. So it's not going to be, you're not going to use XAML with MVU. They are separate. When you're writing MVU, you're using a Fluent builder syntax. You're using model view update, obviously, for your state management and your flow of changes. And more than likely, it'll have a slightly different hot reload pipeline. But when you're doing XAML, you're using MVVM, and you're actually using different controls that use the same interfaces to render the platforms. So the things that need to be the same are the same. The things that meaningfully are different, MVVM versus MVU, XAML versus Fluent Builder, are different. That gets right to the heart of the magic of what we're doing in .NET MAUI, to be honest.
Yeah. Have I missed any questions, Jimmy, Jessica?
I don't think so.
That was a lot of really good questions.
Yeah. Great chat.
So I have another one.
Yeah.
Every time you say .NET Maui, does the Disney song silently flow through your head? It does in my head.
It does? Well, thankfully,
Mhm.
no, because my youngest is 12. She'll be 13 like in 2 weeks. And that was not a big thing in my house. So it didn't earworm its way into my brain. And I have avoided it. So I think I got lucky there.
But we don't have children, and apparently that song was the top song for 2019.
Well, for your
2020.
whatchamacallit?
Yeah, for my playlist.
Playlist, yeah.
On your playlist? Your playlist, or you were playing it over and over?
Yeah.
Well, it came back. Spotify came back and said, this is your top songs. And for him, it was that song.
That one, and I'm very happy to say songs that I only listen to when I train. So that's a good thing.
I have questions.
Yes, well, I will count myself lucky and blessed that that didn't work its way into my brain.
Thank you so much for joining us. Oh, sorry, Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, I had one question more. What do you think about all the people that thinks that Maui should be more like Flutter?
Well,
at least in the beginning, it was a lot of question about that on GitHub.
Oh, yeah, sure. I think it's a very fair question. I think it's a great question. You know, I gave you my history, right? I shared my technology history, and you saw all the Flash and the Flex in there. And then you also saw all the native stuff in there. So personally, from my personal background, I completely understand why certain developers in certain scenarios gravitate towards the value proposition of what Flutter is doing. From a program manager standpoint, kind of as a product owner within .NET, you know, what I'm asking myself, and I'm asking these developers and these companies who are interested, what is it about that you like? Because if you can tell me what your business need is, if you can tell me why it delights you, well, my job is to bring those things into .NET and to make .NET more like that. So there are aspects of things that we're doing that I haven't talked about yet today, but we'll talk about more over the summer, where we have experiments that we're going to do around the common UI, being able to have that drawn UI using Skia or native graphics to both get the consistency and the performance. So when I hear those conversations, I love it because it says, okay, something is delighting you over here. And sometimes it's just frustration, you know, from a career standpoint. You know, you want to feel like you have put yourself in a position to have a good job, making good money for a long time. And if you see a trend going in a direction that is opposite of where your career has been going, you naturally are asking questions. Am I on the wrong path? Have I chosen the wrong technology? Should I be learning this other thing? I went through that with many of my coworkers and community friends. When Steve Jobs said Flash is stupid and dead and just go away. And they were like, well, wait a second, this is what I've made a 10 plus year career on. Now you're telling me I got to go learn something new? I thought I was going to be doing this for another 20 years. So I get that, and I understand that, and it's usually not as bad as people think. But I want to understand where can we improve .NET and where can we take .NET Maui so that, somebody who's presenting on Flutter starts getting the question, why is everybody going to .NET Maui? I thought Flutter was the future. What's wrong? And it's, from my standpoint, it's also not an either or proposition. I very much focus on both and. There's actually a library and a company out there that brings Flutter and .NET with Xamarin together in a single solution so that you can use, again, both. I hate that you have to do that. I wish that I could help you be successful with .NET Maui as a whole, but we'll get there. It takes time. If the business needs stay the same, we'll get there.